So we're in the Psalms, and we'll be looking at the Psalms or the songs of ascent today. And those were the songs that the Israelites sang while they went up into Jerusalem, during the holy days. Jerusalem is on a mountain or on a high place. So for everyone who was coming, they had to travel up. So which was the song. So which was why those psalms were called the songs of going up, right? So we'll start with Psalm 121, and it is perhaps one of the most popular psalms, and many people can recite it by heart. Or at least I know I could. And it is usually a prayer for protection. The superscript has it as one of the songs of ascent, and it starts with David lifting his eyes to look for the only source of help he'd ever known. And the hills here may refer to the terrain around Jerusalem. Like I said, it's the high place. The Lord is the guardian and protector of his people, who never sleeps but watches endlessly. Now I think that came out for me. Now I'm just remembering why I wrote that, because I read also that the journey for some people was dangerous. They had to travel from far, depending on what part of the promised land that they were coming from, and they were susceptible to maybe bandits, wild animals and all. But the Lord was their protection, and they sang these psalms or recited these psalms as they went ahead. Psalm 123 is also another song of ascent, as well as a prayer of relief from contempt. It speaks about looking up to the Lord for direction and mercy. Mercy, mostly because of the contempt and scorn of others, which David and the Israelites had endured from their enemies, especially. Psalm 124, yet another song of ascent, possibly written by David as an ode to the Lord, as a defense for his people. It starts with a popular saying, "If it hadn't been for the Lord who was on our side." And this is acknowledging God, essentially, as the one that brings victory to his people. If it hadn't been God on the side of the Israelites, they would have been swallowed up by their enemies. Instead, God protected them from drowning and from being overwhelmed by calamity. God also often seeks to bring us out to his side so that he may reveal himself as the one who is totally for us. So this psalm, more than anything, just shows the benefits of being on the Lord's side. In Psalm 125, this was one of those songs of ascent that was recognizing God as the strength of his people. Trusting in the Lord provides stability, like Mount Zion. As they said, like Mount Zion that cannot be moved. The Lord provides strength and assurance for his people in difficult times. And those who trust in the Lord maintain, stability. They're unmovable. The psalm says so. And they're surrounded by his protection. So this is the psalm where they have that verse that says, "As the mountains surround Jerusalem, so God surrounds his people." I believe that must have been very symbolic for the people at the time, because they knew the terrain. They knew, just maybe how majestic or how reassuring it was to look around and see mountains surrounding the high place of the Lord, and believe that, God could be their protection in that way. Verse 3 speaks about the deliverance from wicked people, and the Lord separating them so that they don't influence the righteous. A hopefulness for Israel, perhaps, knowing that the power of the wicked doesn't last forever. And then finally, no, not finally, actually, Psalm 128 is a blessing for those who fear the Lord. They will not reap the rewards of, will reap the rewards of their labor. Now it says, one of the things that were here was a good marriage and a happy family. These blessings, not material possessions, are considered life's greatest values. And walking in God's ways produces great rewards. To fear the Lord involves reverencing Him, reverencing Him and obedience. Now, prosperity is promised to those who fear the Lord with long life. But for clarity, right, these blessings were for a specific time and for a specific people. Remember, I started by saying a good marriage and children. So it doesn't necessarily mean that anyone who doesn't have a good marriage or children did not obey the Lord. So just to let you know that this was for a specific time, for a specific people, the Israelites, and for a purpose. Remember, they were just, in the promised land, and God's commandment for them was to fill up the land. So obviously marriage and reproduction and reproducing children was something that was probably very well sought after, and we've seen this from all the genealogies that we've read. This person is the father of this and father of that and father. So basically I believe that that's what was tied into it. So it may not necessarily be applicable today that only the obedience gets children. That's not it. So we should always read these things in context. There were two additional Psalms, I forgot, 129 and 130. And 129 was basically a song of victory over enemies. The psalm recalls Israel's suffering at the hands of their enemies and how God repeatedly delivered them. And so Psalm 130 was about waiting for the redemption of the Lord. It was basically an urgent cry to the Lord out of despair, and receiving God's forgiveness, which leads to the reverent fear. And remember what we said, that fear isn't, oh my God, I'm scared. It is awe and delight, and also obedience. And now here's my hashtag getting to know God lesson. There's forgiveness in the Lord. In 130 verse 4, it says that it talked about the fear that incites delight and awe, which I just spoke about. So God's forgiveness of our sin inspires respect, reverence, and delight, and draws us close to Him. So it's not the fear, like I said, that drives us away. Jesus has paid for our sins, and this gives us access to God. And so we should always remember that we don't have to perform, like it's not our performance or non-performance. And that's something that's really coming through to me reading these Psalms. It's just how God is just powerful over every situation and how His will always stands. So I hope you've enjoyed this lesson today. I know I did, like I told you how I'm reading the Psalms. Tomorrow we'll start with our 11th book of the Bible. Yes, I said it's 11th. So we'll be going into 2 Samuel, and we'll be sharing lessons from chapters 1 to 4. And I look forward to seeing you here. Have a good evening. Bye.